Hey everybody, my name is 4D Clif, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's get into this. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be talking about Luffy's mother. Yes, surprising, right? I know, right? Literally, some of you are probably in complete shock, okay? Wait a minute, he's not making a Nami video? He's not making a Loki video? He's not making that video? It's like, yes, I'm not making that video, but instead, I'm going to be making that video, alright? Which is technically this video right here, okay? Let's keep that in mind, right? That video is different from that video because that video is this video, right? Does anyone get that? I'm pretty sure you guys get that, right? I don't need to explain the whole reasons for that, but just to understand here, I'm not making that video, but instead I'm making that video, which is technically this video right here, right? Do we get that? Do we understand? Oh, thank you so much. You understand. Very good. Very good. Okay, so yes, Luffy's mother, okay? I'm basically going to sort of like give a suggestion here, right? And keep in mind, some of you might actually think this might doesn't make a lot of sense here, but let's go over this necessarily, all right? So here's something to start off with, okay? Let's start off with Luffy's mother precisely, okay? Now, in actuality, we don't know who Luffy's mother is, right? She's never been officially confirmed yet. She is basically one of those mother mysteries in the One Piece world that some people would basically be very interested in knowing exactly like what's her relationship with dragons like that. Why, like, what's the whole scenario there? Okay, and there have been like a lot of theories of like characters who are very good potential mother-like figures who could be Luffy's mother, right? And there's been a lot of them. Okay, probably one of the most outrageous ones, and probably the ones that like always completely go strong, like every single year that a new Luffy's mother needs to come into place is whenever people suggest Crocodile, okay? Yes, Crocodile himself, okay? And then there's been other ones like Tritomas like that. She's also been like a good candidate as well, it's like that. But there's been a lot of like good candidates, right? So that in itself is like that is a very good a very good well, I'm not exactly sure the right word I need to use here. It's like that, but to put it simple, there have been a lot of good candidates for Luffy's mother, right? A lot of them, okay? But who do I think is Luffy's mother, right? Well, this might actually seem strange here, but I do think this could actually be a possibility. Now, I've actually talked about this before. So back then, about like, what was it? I can't necessarily remember stuff like that, but one of my last Nami origin family videos like that, not the one I just did, right? The last video I just did was Nami somehow probably being related to, crap, why am I slipping on his name? It's like that, Shepard, right? Shepard Summers, okay? But before that, the one I did was possibly Nami being related to Clover, right? Cloudy Ran, right? Where I basically suggested that Nami's real name could be Cloudy Ran, right? Or in context here, Cloudland, okay? What I'm going to basically do in this context is look at that same thing, but instead try and figure out or see if there's a way I can connect it to Luffy, okay? Now, keep in mind here, right? I'm not necessarily disproving what I stated in that video, right? I'm not necessarily disproving the fact that I can't necessarily see Nami as a Cloud D family, okay? I'm not saying that, okay? I still see, I can still see both cases, both being accurate like that. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm saying that they're both accurate at the exact same time. I'm just saying that I can see both options as a possibility in itself, okay? So here's the context here, okay? So let's start off with this, right? The idea, what I'm going to suggest here is that possibly, and this is a big possibility in itself, right? Like a big what if, right? What if it's a possibility here that Luffy's mother is actually the daughter of Clover himself, right? Now, yes, I'm probably going to suggest, and I imagine a lot of you out there are even going to say, like, Clover doesn't have a daughter, right? Oda's never mentioned one. And yes, that's the key point here. Oda has never mentioned one, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Clover cannot have a daughter, right? That is important to understand here, okay? So let's really to really get into this like that, to really focus on it like that, we have to really understand this, okay? So let's start off with another part of Luffy's mother, right? Now, when it comes to Luffy's mother and like that, there are two prominent figures within Fuchsia Village who you can basically give a credence to Luffy's mother, right? Or in terms of like motherly figures in that regards, okay? One is obviously the Dawn, like that. The Dawn was the basically the one who is really the one who is in charge of taking care of Luffy and his brother Ace, and then Sabo later through most of their childhood and everything. Basically Garp just dumped Luffy on her and like that, and she was forced to raise him like that. So if anyone is regarded as Luffy's mother, it's obviously the Dawn herself. Now another person that you can look at is actually Makino. Oh, and by the way, that's not Luffy, okay? But regards here and like that, Makina O was someone who Luffy knew during his childhood and growing up and everything. She's probably more of like an older sister or maybe like an aunt but you can still typically like regard her as having like a mother, like being some type of motherly figure in that regards here. But in regards here, it's actually Dawn who is actually more of the actual mother to Luffy than anyone else. But let's actually just get into the context of the video itself to understand what I'm going to suggest here, okay? Okay, so back to the daughter of Clover and all this kind of stuff, okay? So here's how this can technically work, all right? So Clover died 22 years ago, all right? During the events of the Ohara accident, okay? During the events of what happened at Ohara, all right? And, basically, Robin's situation here and all that kind of stuff, okay? Happened 22 years ago from the current storyline, okay? Clover died at the age of 85. Now, after what happened to Ohara and like that, we actually get basically get a moment where Vegapunk and Dragon basically run into each other or to pay respects to Clover, right? And it's revealed that Dragon knew Old Man Clover, right? Now, it's never been necessarily stated or even given the fact of how he actually knows him, okay? We know for a fact that Vegapunk himself was already aware of Clover even before these events, okay? Because Clover even basically revealed to Vegapunk his true name, right? He revealed the whole situation of what happened to his brother, or in how he basically saw him shot before his eyes, and that he lied out of fear of being basically being killed himself. Well, and spent his entire life lying to everyone that he's not a D, when in fact Clover was a D, right? His real name is Cloud D Clover, okay? That happened 4 years ago before the events of Ohara, okay? During the events of what happened at Ohara that day, okay? Now, Dragon himself basically started out as a Marine, all right? He was a Marine, he left the Marines, and then became a freedom fighter, and then after the freedom fighters is when the Revolutionary Army became a part of it, okay? So, obviously, it goes Dragon as a Marine, Dragon as a freedom fighter, and then Dragon as the Revolutionary Army leader, right? That's how it basically goes. Now, during Dragon's time as a freedom fighter, we can imagine that he definitely knew Clover, right? I'm not necessarily saying that he definitely never knew him like that. He obviously did, okay? But the real question in itself is basically asking a very important matter here on exactly how do they know each other, right? Is there a good enough reason to understand why they could actually know each other, right? Well, there possibly is, right? What if it's possible that the main reason, or like the really good reason here on why Dragon actually knows Clover is because Dragon was in a relationship with a child of Clover, right? And technically speaking, it is possible for Clover to have a child. Now, when I did the whole Nami Cloudy Clover video and stuff like that, I basically mentioned that it would be impossible for Clover to be the dad. All right, I basically mentioned that it would be impossible for Clover to be the dad because Nami was born 2 years later. Right, Clover died at the age of 5. Nami was born 2 years later after that. All right, so Clover would have had to been 87. Okay, but I did mention for the fact here that Clover could technically be the grandfather or even great grandfather, right? And that same scenario here can actually work for Luffy in that regards, okay? So even though Clover can't be the father, or he can't technically be the grandfather or great grandfather, right? Maybe even a great grandfather, okay? But let's not try and go too many greats. So let's just stick with grandfather, so that way we're keeping this video in a simple context, okay? All right. So let's start off with this, okay? Let's just get back in this video, okay? So, oh, so where was I? Okay, Dragon. Oh crap! I'm losing my mind here. I'm already losing my spot. Okay, let's see. Where was I? So, Dragon, Revolutionary Army. Okay, yes. Okay. So, yeah. So, if it's possible here that Clover actually has a child, right? And keep in mind, right? It could be possible that his child, that he probably has a son and like that, or maybe even a daughter and like that. I'm not exactly sure how many children he has, but it technically could be possible. Okay. Now, during the whole explanation when Vegapunk, but specifically. Oh crap! Which one was it? No, let's see. The Vegapunk. So you have Lilith, Atlas. Let's see, York, Edison, Shaka. Yeah, Shaka. That's it. Okay, Shaka was the one I was trying to think of. Okay. Shaka basically mentioned and like the whole Vegapunk thing, not the whole Vegapunk, mentioned the whole Clover past thing, and he mentioned that during Clover's youth, he was an basically advent adventurers like that who was very keen on learning about the voice century and studying the ancient texts. Okay, and that he even mentioned that he was captured by the Marines on 10 different occasions and always managed to escape. Okay, now here's the thing to really get in here. Okay. We're not exactly given an exact time frame on when Clover started his sailing adventures like that. We're not actually given that to the point on when he actually settled down Ohara and actually began studying the research there, right? We're basically told that he moved to Ohara, or his homeland like that, and started studying everything properly and like that around like when he was like 80 or 81, and which was about like 4 to 5 years in total on Ohara during his past times. But we're not actually given a time frame on how much years he was sailing out there necessarily. Okay, and you see that's the key point here. So let's say, for instance, right? Let's say Clover was 25 when he saw his brother get shot. Okay, and then 5 years later, when he was 30, is when he started sailing out there in the sea. I'm trying to learn as much as possible, okay? And that his journey ended when he was 80 years old, right? So 30 from 80 is nearly 50 years, okay? And a lot can happen in 50 years. So technically speaking, it could be very possible that Clover could have actually met someone during his travels. The lady ended up getting pregnant and giving birth to a child, okay? And if that child grew up being the daughter of Clover, or ended up falling in love with Dragon, and then that could actually give a good credence here on why Dragon, or even how Dragon actually knew Clover to begin with, okay? Is because of Clover's daughter, who was in a relationship with Dragon himself, right? And with that could even give a great indication in on Luffy himself, okay? Now, to continue even further and to even go more into the Luffy was born after the events of Ohara, right? That's very important to understand here, okay? Let's see. So Luffy was born 3 years later, right? So after the events of Ohara, Luffy was born 3 years later, right? It was stated that the Revolutionary Army started up 1 year after the events of Ohara, okay? 1 year after the events of Ohara is when the Revolutionary Army basically kicked in, okay? That means 2 years later, Luffy was born, right? So Dragon was already part of the Revolutionary Army during that time, okay? Now, with that in mind here, it could obviously be stated very importantly that, when the whole situation of Luffy's father being revealed was a complete shock to everyone, right? Even Ivankov, who knew Dragon ever since the beginning of the Revolutionary Army began and all that didn't even know Luffy even existed, right? He knew Luffy existed, but he never knew anything about Dragon being a father, right? Like, no one ever knew that. So in regards here, I could definitely see it as a possibility to state that, the people of the Revolutionary Army didn't know anything about Dragon being a father, or probably didn't even know anything about him being in a relationship with someone. But if that's the case, I could definitely see it for the fact that, Dragon actually, Dragon himself was obviously keeping his love life completely separate. Right? He's keeping his, basically his wife and child a secret from everybody, including people at his own work. Okay. So in regards here, what I'm actually suggesting for this crazy theory is that Luffy's mom could have possibly been the daughter of Clover, right? And that technically could work, okay? Like I did mention the whole scenario here that we're not given an exact time frame of how many years Clover was sailing out there on the seas, but it technically could be possible, right? Clover could actually have a daughter, right? And with that in mind here, it could be very possible that she could actually be alive, right? We don't know that for sure, and we're going to assume that she's dead and everything, because a lot of One Piece mothers don't really stay alive, okay? They're practically all dead. So, I mean, in all fairness here, I'd have to say that she's probably dead, Ed, but let's still just wait till we know for sure, right? So in context, the main purpose and the main dedication of this theory that I'm just trying to basically suggest here as an idea, all right? Just an idea with no real hard evidence to back it up or anything to necessarily prove that it's 100% accurate. It's just a simple idea, all right? That Luffy's mother is none other than Clover's daughter, who is in a relationship with Dragon, all right? That can make a lot of sense, right? That seriously, when you really think about it, even if there's no real hard evidence to necessarily prove it, but when you think about it very clearly here and just look at some of the things that we have as a pinpoint to understand it, you can actually think, hey, you know what? That could actually make a lot of sense here, right? That could actually make a lot of sense. Luffy's mother, all this time, was Clover's daughter, and no one even considered that, okay? So yes, that will do it for this video, right? That will do it for this presentation, okay? So thank you so much for joining me. Please let me know what you think of my idea and think of my theory in itself, right? If you actually think my idea on Luffy's mother could possibly be Clover's daughter, please let me know in the comment section below. Now, all we have to necessarily do is actually wait for Oda to actually reveal that Clover actually has a child. Now, it could be very possible that he never did have a child, right? That is very possible, okay? But look, to put it somewhat here, even though Oda's never really revealed that Clover actually had a daughter, I'm just basically giving something of an idea here, okay? It definitely could work, and there's nothing necessarily there's nothing to necessarily disprove the fact that it cannot be true, right? So in all regards here, this is just a simple idea, simple video that I'm just doing for fun. So hey, if you like my idea and you like my suggestion on anything I presented, please let me know in the comment section below, alright? So that will do it for this video, alright? So please, subscribe to the channel, hit notification bells, like the video, do whatever you feel like you need to do, alright? So that will do it. You all have a great day. Goodbye, everybody.